Tamara Scott Show. Tamara has served as the state director for one of America's largest pro-life, pro-family public policy organizations. In 2007, Tamara was named one of America's top 10 most influential kingmakers by the Religion News Association. Tamara has spent years proclaiming and defending the values of a Christian worldview that is the foundation of our constitutional republic. And now, here is your host, Tamara Scott.
Hey everybody, thank you for joining us today. I am Tamara Scott. This is the Tamara Scott Show on WVWTV.com. We're glad to be here with you, honored to be here with you on WVWTV.com every Monday through Friday at noon Central Time. You can see our shows complimentary live each weekday, and then they go they make themselves available to you for 7 days, but then they go behind the paywall at WVW. Actually, it's worldviewtube.com, worldviewtube.com/fault, worldviewtube.com/fault. There are several links here. Brandon House doesn't leave anything set. He has so many options for you. So worldviewtube.com/fault is where you can join with a subscription fee. You not only have accessibility to our show, but to all the shows we've done, all the incredible guests we have, every show that's on the network, as well as Brandon's personal, professional library of what he has done, documentaries, presentations, his conferences. So that's all available. It's an incredibly good value for the cost of the subscription. And then Thomas is now putting some of our shows on YouTube. And so Thomas, give me there you go, Worldview Tube TV, Worldview Tube TV. So it's worldviewtube.com, but Worldview Tube TV on YouTube. So thank you for that. Sometimes you guys ask me for shows, and if they've been behind the vault, then I can't necessarily share it with you without the subscription. This is a blessing. This is a huge blessing. We appreciate this. All right, so joining us today, it is day after President's Day. It is February 17th. It is Dennis Behrend Day. We are always honored and thrilled to have Dennis Behrend join us here in the studio. Actually, he's on air in his studio, but we're always glad to have him. You recognize him from the book. I think mine is around here somewhere. I had to move it. I had a guest in studio the other day and actually moved it. I think you have a photo, Thomas, if you want to put the graphic for the book up there. Endgame. Excellent book. COVID may be over, but a lot of the tactics that were used, Dennis just laid out so well. They are not the first time here in America or across the globe with COVID. He laid them out as how they'd been used and honed in countries across the globe. And it just ties it all together, the transhumanism, the AI, all of it together. And it's just a great handbook, guidebook that I think you'll mark up, tab up, and have to go back to as a reference. So he's the author of that. He's also got his website now, and we appreciate the work that he does on that website as well. I've got to go back to it because I've been checking things out with Convention of States. They just ruin so many good days, right? You just get so tired of having to deal with these folks. They just come back and come back and come back with the big money donors that they apparently have and a lot of other information that always seems to be askew. So Dennis, join us today. Welcome to the Tamara Scott Show. And so yep. So thank you so much. And tell our viewers your website where they can find you. Is it theamericandailyherald.com?
That is correct, americandailyherald.com. And we've been on a little bit of a hiatus while I've been traveling for business repeatedly over the last couple of months, but the site is out there. We've got a lot of great content there, a lot of great articles, coverage of various things, opinions and whatnot, and there's going to be more to come. It's just a labor of love to get the site online and to keep it going, and we expect a lot of growth over the next 5 to 10 years. And certainly with things going on like Convention of the States and always attacks on liberty from every corner, the more voices that we can get out there in favor of traditional American values, our culture, our civilization, and our Constitution, the better. So I'm happy to do that. I'm thrilled that we can do it, and joining ranks with Tamara. What an honor that is. Thank you, Tamara.
Thank you. We love having you on. We haven't had you on since November, I think. No, October, because November we ended up, studio went out the full week for the holiday of Thanksgiving, which I was so grateful for. And so we didn't have you in November. We didn't have you in Christmas time because of the same reason. And so then January, what was it? January, was I traveling or you traveling? Oh, the studio had the storms go through, and I think we somehow the internet or something came down. So we have missed having you on. We're going to try and make up for it, viewers. We scheduled them this week and next Tuesday. And now, Dennis, I may have to be at the State House next Tuesday. There's an event happening there, and I need to be there. So we may have to reschedule next Tuesday again, but I'm so glad you could be here with us today. And we're going to get you back into a regular schedule.
Excellent. We'll take care of whatever we need to for you, Tamara, because when you're needed at the State House, you have to go do that. That's really important. And, I can be flexible to whatever works for the schedule for your station and your viewers.
Thank you. I appreciate that very, very much. All right. So, gosh, I don't know, Dennis. It's just like I get so tired of fighting the same old when we have the tools to fix what we need right now. It's like having a fire extinguisher in your hand and fussing about somebody needing to put out a fire, and maybe we need to, and they want to add gasoline to it. I mean, it's just everything. It's so frustrating.
Well, we really have a problem with education in the country, and that's combined with the radically decreased attention spans that come from the scroll first lifestyle that everyone has now on TikTok and Instagram and things of that sort. And details about our political system and our republic and our Constitution are not real scroll worthy, it would seem, to people, and their attention spans don't hang around long enough to really study these things and understand them. And so we constantly have to remind people we have to turn our Constitution into scroll worthy snippets and repeat them over and over and over again, because attention spans. And that's what it's going to take in the modern world to remind people that liberty is important and why we have the system that we have and how it works. Because otherwise, hucksters, I hate to say, but hucksters and snake oil salesmen will come along and try to convince people who don't have all the facts readily at hand, because it's a scroll-worthy situation. They can sway them with innuendos, even outright lies sometimes, and get people going in the wrong direction. And that's where we have to come in and provide that alternative perspective in a way that really sticks in people's minds. So we have to repeat it, and it's tiring, but it's the way of things right now in our short attention span TikTok universe.
And I have the fact that people don't read it, they have little knowledge of what's in it. And so they therefore also don't know that every tool we need to fix our problems, we all admit we have some issues. We have concerns, a $38 trillion debt. We all get that needs fixed. But everything we need to fix it with the same brilliance that Santorum's now trying to talk about the founders having, they put in the Constitution for us. Those tools are there. Why will convention of states not use their political clout they say they have, their millions of members they say they have, their big donors that they apparently have, to help us fix the issues that we could without the risk of opening up a constitution when it can be replaced, repealed, totally struck down, and a new one put in with a totally different ratification process, which is exactly what happened in 1787. They tried to dismiss that, but that's exactly what happened. They've also tried to downplay now they refuse the risk, no risk. Now they're downplaying the risk. We'll hope to get to this video and be able to explain that today. Dennis, why not just use nullification, separation of powers, checks and balances? Why won't they help us call our legislators when we've proven if you get 300 to 500 in a congressional district, you can change the vote of your elected officials?
I think there could be two reasons why they won't. And one I don't think is legitimate, but let's consider it for just a moment. One reason could be that they just simply don't understand the Constitution. And in other words, they're like a lot of other people nowadays who, in our short attention span world, don't really know and don't really remember how things have come to pass, what happened in 1789, what has happened since, how legislation progresses through the system, how amendments progress through the system or are repealed, and they maybe just don't understand those things. Or the alternative would be that they do understand those things, but their actual end goal is not actually fixing the problems that we have through actual constitutional means, which exist, but they have some other agenda, and they're just using the problems that exist as a wedge in order to get their other agenda through. Well, as to the first possibility that they don't know, I don't think that's likely. Many of the people who are involved with Convention of the States certainly have enough knowledge and understanding, I should think, based on their career trajectories, that they know precisely the same things that we know. If that's true, again, I can't prove it, but I'm just laying out the possibilities here. If that's true that they do know exactly what they're doing, then they have some other agenda than what is being openly stated. And that other agenda must be that they want to revolutionize our constitutional republic in some way, shape, or form. And that, to me, seems the most likely possibility. Of course, we'd have to see what they have to say about those things. I don't think they've ever admitted that outright, but nonetheless, it doesn't seem likely to me that they are ill-informed. I think they're probably very well-informed, in fact.
They haven't admitted it outright, but we have to use some deductive reasoning. Look at the evidence. When we have the WEF, the WHO, who has made it known they have wanted to override our Constitution, that they wanted control over what we did. Even after COVID, remember, was it in 2023 with one of the treaties? They wanted to be able to decide what we could even talk about. They said, you will not talk about it outside your universities, in the media. They wanted complete control. This is not an organization that respects your Constitution. So you've got the WEF, WHO, you've got the globalists inside and outside our government. Do you not think that they would want influence in a convention? And if we're worried about corruption, we talk about the big money lobbyist in DC, which term limits actually helps, I think, create or grow that, because these folks are not going to listen to the voters who can't approve them. They can no longer elect them or eject them. So there's no threat there. They know they've got to find the next gig. So now they're looking for that next friendly offer. So imagine if they were at a one-time, well, supposedly one time, because Santorum's now said he wants a convention every 5 years. He said it several times in different states on record. He wants a convention every 5 years. We could talk to the danger of that and how that will centralize government. You will draw everything to that every 5-year convention. Congress will wait to pass something to wait and see what they do at the convention. States will wait to pass something to wait and see what they do at that convention. And it will diminish the powers of your states. But that's what he has said several times. And Ferris is on record saying the best thing about a convention is we can always call another one, which would make us incredibly irrational, erratic, violent, volatile, and elections would no longer be our issues. It would be coups and killing, in my opinion. That's my opinion. I'll let you comment on that, and then we'll try and get to the article and we'll try and get to the video.
Well, I think that would be a recipe for banana republic type government, actually. You're absolutely right about that. We would have pure chaos. And if you are looking at it from an internationalist point of view, let's say you are the head of a European-based non-governmental organization that sees the United States Constitution as an impediment to your global policy initiatives, then chaos in the United States and the overthrow of the Constitution is your happy day. That's what you need, because the Constitution is, Constitution was created by the founding fathers to be an impediment to radical, rapid change. It was supposed to be divide the powers, divide the responsibilities. Let's not have revolution through government. Let's keep. It's a very conservative document, and it's of course the unique in the world. There is no other constitution for government like that anywhere. So getting rid of that, if you want to revolutionize things on a global basis, and the government of the United States is in the way because its constitution will not allow every kind of radical legislation to be enacted into law right away whenever it's wanted. Well, that kind of chaos, having that constitutional convention every 5 years, throwing the states under the bus completely, eradicating the relationship with the federal government on a federalist basis that the founding fathers established. This is exactly what a globalist would want if they want to get rid of the influence of the Constitution of the United States. Absolutely.
Melvin Laird, a defense secretary, I think under Nixon, said, if you have such a convention, you will throw off commerce across the globe. it will just uproar. And so imagine every 5 years, not just America, but across the globe. All right. So we have the video. I think we can get to it now. I have to tell you, I didn't get through all of Santorum's testimony because I just kept stopping and writing down rebuttals and counters to his fallacies and his fake promises and his false information. And so I didn't even get through the whole part of his testimony. Do you want to do the article first with Meckler, or do you want to do the video? These are out of South Dakota. They are under siege. The Convention of States failed in their House on the 11th, I believe it was. It failed. And I'm told that the look of Meckler and Santorum was just pure stun. They were just absolutely stunned. But then there was another move they could make. See, these people who tell us to trust them on a convention, it'll go just like we say, always find loopholes. I hear that in a lot of other states. It passed the state, but it wasn't the way it normally goes through, or it didn't. They tried something in a committee that we don't usually do. We hear that often. All right, so this time they did something where they call smoking it out. So with 1/3 vote from the House, they can now put it back up, though so it failed because of a tie. Right. Yeah. And supposedly a key member was missing. So now this today, I think the 1/3 vote to get it back up for discussion or full debate on the House. And I don't know if that has to happen the next day. I don't know. So do you want to talk about the article first? Do you want to go to the video of testimony first?
Well, I think the key thing that came out of the article that was about the Convention of States situation, and that article, I forget which the publication was. But in any case, they were interviewing Mark Meckler, and the thing that I took away from that, which was, first of all, there was a heck of a lot of fawning over Meckler and the Convention of the States as a great thing. This was a very, I would say, partisan publication on this particular issue in favor of Convention of the States. But the other thing that I took from that article was that they believe they can maneuver in the back room, as it were. They didn't use that language, but that's what it amounts to get their measures voted on. They have ways in which they can exercise influence, and they have strategies, and they can pull those things off in these, in my words, backroom deals to get them done. I guess that's the way of politics, but it's not above board for sure.
Yeah, if you're worried about backroom deals, smoke-filled rooms, and corruption, money changing hands, whatever you want to call it, somebody who's not worried about the election and coming back to Congress, but somebody who's there for a convention, they're a delegate supposedly for one convention, they've got nothing riding on it. There's no recourse. Santorum said, we'll make them sign a pledge. We have them take the oath. What's the difference, right? You've got no teeth, and we've had court cases that say you have no right because they're sovereign. Once you get to a convention, they are sovereign, and your state no longer has control. All right. So, and in that article, you found a couple things. I found like red line after red line. They said states have lost so much of their power through the Interstate Commerce Clause, various other rulings, Supreme Court rulings, and what the Constitution actually says. So, okay, but to yours and I's point, states could have that power right now through nullification, through stopping. Go ahead. I mean, through stopping if the states would rise up with the effort they're putting into this risky operation, states could correct things without risk to our Constitution.
And very easily. I mean, the work at the state legislature level is not going to be interfered with on any major way by any kind of federal authorities. It's going to be handled cleanly. It's going to be handled carefully, and it's not going to be controversial, as it were. What has to happen from the alternative side is to make large issues about things in order to propagandize the population to push forward with the desired agenda from the organizational point of view. And that's just not necessary. And that's the key part of the entire agenda for a convention movement, which is trying to create an issue where none exists. And why? Why would you do that? Because you have some other agenda in mind. Our constitutional republic works as intended, and where it has been led astray historically, mechanisms already exist at the state level, at the federal level, to fix these problems. So creating conditions where you make an effort to ignore all of the existing structure that allows you to fix these problems in order to set up something new, that clearly to me is suspicious. That just reeks of, we want to overturn the entire apparatus. And if you overturn the entire apparatus, our freedom, as we've come to know it as Americans, is over. Convention of the States, in my opinion, is directly an assault on the freedoms of the American citizens.
Absolutely, Thomas. Let's mark that in our tape because that is absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. And talking about there's something else going on. We'll come back and play the video of Kelly, and then we'll go to the big video of Santorum. But we've got to go to a break. We've ridden right past it. We'll be right back.
I mean, I really believe we need to institute this.
Do you like drinking toxins that could cause cancer, inflammation, and all kinds of other autoimmune diseases? Of course you don't. Well, much of our water in America is full of toxins. That's a proven fact. WorldviewWater.net. WorldviewWater.net is your solution so that you can drink good, clean water. In fact, I give it to all my 3 fur babies, all my 3 dogs. I have one under my kitchen sink, one of these filters, as well as on my shower. WorldviewWater.net.
I need to tell you about our Bella Grace. The slender little sachet has the elixir with the collagen, astaxanthin, and cat's claw. In 2022, got an award for helping with cognitive function, and in 2023 in the sports arena for active ingredients, nutrition, and format. But the best is what we hear from so many of you. You have noticed better joint health, improved mobility, less eye strain and fatigue, helping with computer vision syndrome, visual acuity, depth perception, alleviating dry eyes, but also helping with your immunity, your stress management, endurance, less fatigue overall, not just eye fatigue, muscle recovery, mental clarity, focus, and gut health. Then there's the fun list. The firmer, smoother skin texture, fewer fine lines and wrinkles, improved skin elasticity, decreased age spots, more even skin tone, improved skin hydration, reduced oxidative stress, healthier nails, less cellulite, hair health, better sleep. Who wouldn't want any of those? Call them beauty items if you wish, but who doesn't want to feel a little bit better or more confident when you're going to present in the public square, when you're going to speak at a city council? And who just doesn't want to feel a little healthier? Maybe they're just byproducts of being healthier. More information at tamara.bellagraceglobal.com, tamara.bellagraceglobal.com. All right, Dennis Beeman is my guest. There's just so much here, right? And we're just going through it this morning. All right, so let's do this. Let's go back right here to Robert Kelly. This is a video by Convention of States staff attorney Robert Kelly. Let's start at I think it's the 121 or 127 that you have, Thomas. This tells you what their goal is.
Guess what? Congress is part of the problem. It opens up Article 2. Why? Because the president is part of the problem. It opens up Article 3. Why? Because the Supreme Court is part of the problem. It allows us Article 5 to be considered so that the states don't have to go through this convoluted process in the future, so that if 3/4 of the states agree in advance, they could propose amendments to the Constitution. It opens up these articles because the problem is not in an isolated single branch of the federal government. It's the president, it's the Supreme Court, and it's Congress. And if we limited ourselves to just...
So hold on, don't get rid of that video because I'm going to have you come back and do one more thing in that video. We missed where it says Article 1, but so far they want Article 1, Article 2, Article 3, Article 5. That is not an amendment, friends. That's an overhaul of every branch of government. All right. Dennis, you want to comment before I have him play the next portion of that clip, or do you want me to?
He just made our point for us. I mean, he's admitting right there, we're going to destroy the Constitution. Our goal is to open up every bit of the governing body of our law that governs the federal government that was set up by the founding fathers. Out with it. We're going to destroy the whole thing. We don't even have to say it. He's saying it for us.
Okay, so let's go now. I think it can start at 253 or try 250.
We need scumbag politicians in the states checking scumbag politicians in Washington, D.C. It's not perfect politicians checking.
I just wanted to show the respect they have for our elected officials. We need scumbag politicians at the state watching scumbag politicians in D.C. That's from Robert Kelly, staff attorney for Convention of States. Now they've changed their tune. They're now a lot kinder. They realize they need the legislators to actually be the ones to call these revolutions and vote these revolutions past. So they're really now sucking up to legislators, but they weren't. That's who they are. They have no respect for the American process or our Constitution or the people. Trust me in that. We've seen it, the way they run over people. Dennis, your comments?
Well, I think if you haven't seen that before, you should be outraged and shocked by it. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say I know all these legislators and I know all these public servants who have gone into office, but I do know some of them. I've talked to many of them at the state level. I've talked to many in the Senate. I've talked to many in the House members over the years. And by and large, I mean, they're good people trying to do the right thing. Even if I disagree with some of them in some areas, no one ever agrees 100% with everybody. But by and large, the people I've talked to, they're not that word that guy used. They're people who are Americans who try very hard to do the right thing. They've seen something that they want to react to. They want to do a good job. You know, right here in my home state in Wisconsin, I mean, there's a great senator that we have right now who was a businessman here in the state of Wisconsin, and he gave people a lot of jobs. He grew his company, you know, very profitably, did a great job. And he saw that he could make a difference in Washington, and he's been elected as a senator at great cost to himself and his family to do these things. So these are people who are willing to sacrifice and work hard and try to do a good job and be good leaders and be good Americans. And well, that's just, you know, that's insulting. Now, are some politicians bad? Well, I think history demonstrates that's true. But to paint with such a broad brush for a propagandistic ploy like that is, you know, it's distasteful at the very least, but certainly shows a little bit about the character of the organization that would engage in that kind of mudslinging and attack.
Right. I'm putting this on our Facebook post for our Tamara Scott Show Facebook friends right now, so you too can have that article, that little clip, and you can watch that whole. It was some little debate, and thank heavens that group posted that. All right, so let's go ahead and open up. I won't even go through all my issues with the Meckler article. There's just so much propaganda there, and so many contradictions of things they've said in the past. Right. Yeah. Okay, so let me see if I can find this one, because one of them, I am in the article, they said something about, so just here in Iowa, we've been told, legislators have been told they're not going to go after reining in fiscal spending. They wouldn't cut entitlements, but yet Santorum's talking about that in his testimony. So once again, they're not even agreeing on what they're saying or what their remedy would be. And Meckler's saying that they're going to do that here, which they could do. They absolutely could do that. Oh, and they're going to do for term limits now all of a sudden on the elected and the unelected. So staffers and bureaucrats won't, what most of your readers will recognize, often referred to as a deep state. Honestly, I don't know, Dennis. Again, it's not the people who have served, it's the quality of people who serve. It's not the quantity of time served, it's the quality of people serving. And so you're going to lose your institutional knowledge. I'm telling you, they are going to have a coup. That's what they're after.
Yeah. Well, you make so many good points there that we could talk about for entire shows right then and there. Institutional knowledge is a serious problem right now, not just in government, but in industry, broadly speaking, here in the United States and really around the world. We've got some demographic changes that are flowing in the wake of the retirement of the baby boomer generation. These are a lot of people who are leaving the workforce. And in most cases, much of their knowledge has not been captured and transmitted to new generations. And there's many reasons for that, not the least of which is the increasingly rapid failure of our educational institutions. But that knowledge is leaving, and it's also, if we do term limits in government, it's going to force out that kind of knowledge out of government as well. So if you think about a representative who runs successfully and gets reelected all the time, they're very successful in what they're doing, whatever this representative hypothetically is, and the people in their state, in their district, keep electing them because they're doing a good job, it's viewed as a good job. Why should that person be term limited out? It's not necessary. And it's damaging. So you have a combination of the unnecessary aspect of it and the damaging outcome from it. It's just a bad idea. Again, Supreme Court justices. So let's say you have a really great Supreme Court justice, and for me, this will reveal where my thought is. Clarence Thomas. I think Clarence Thomas has been an outstanding Supreme Court justice for his entire career on the bench, and should he be forced out by term limits? Right. I think that would be a terrible outcome to see someone like Justice Thomas off the Supreme Court because he was term limited out. That's awful.
Right. And so if you want judges to serve less time, because Santorum says in his No, I think it was this. I think it was this article. One of them said something about they become more for centralized government, which tell me again how a convention of states every 5 years wouldn't really centralize government and focus. But if you want less term limits on the bench, then nominate older justices. They have more experience. They're not looking for the next career rung on the career ladder. They are not frightened by the threats of the headlines or what liberal or political groups may say to them. So get and nominate older justices. So that would solve it. And we don't have to open up the Constitution and risk our sovereignty as a nation to do it. All right, there's just so much here. It's just so hard to get, there's just so much here. And like I said, we just went through this morning. Let's start. Where do you want to start in Santorum's? Because I have the ERA. He brings the ERA up as a defense on this. And I
we can go there. I think, for me, the biggest issue is the way in which the states relate to the federal government. And that was radically altered in 1913 when direct election of senators was put in place by amendment to the Constitution. And Rick Santorum brings that up, and he points out in his comments that, this right here, this direct election of senators, has really damaged state relationships with the federal government. It's overturned what was intended by the founding fathers. Ergo, we must then have a constitutional convention to rectify that. And that's just not true. We don't need a constitutional convention, a convention of the states like is being proposed when it comes to fixing amendments to the Constitution. Our own history, there's precedent for how the amendment process can be altered in terms of amendments that have been adopted to the Constitution. And so if we want to fix the direct election of senators, which has really been, I think, the key way in which the federal government has been allowed to escape control and begin its radical expansion over the 20th century. I think that is the number one way in which this has happened. So fixing that would be the number one way to stop it from continuing. That could be done without a convention of the states type of convention, and there's precedent for how that works. So it's, again, we know a problem. We have a constitutional means of doing it without a dangerous outcome. So why do we pursue the dangerous outcome? It doesn't make sense.
And Santorum gives you backup on that point in his speech. We'll come back to that when we get done with the second break. Stay tuned.
News is moving faster than ever, and so are we. WorldViewTube brings you 24/7 live stream coverage and now real-time alerts when it matters most. Once you have the WorldViewTube app installed, exit the app and navigate your way to Settings. In Settings, locate the tab labeled Notifications. Select the Notifications tab. Scroll down until you locate the WorldViewTube app icon. Select the tab, and here you can turn on and customize your notification experience for the WorldViewTube app. News doesn't wait, and neither should you. Turn on push notifications to stay informed. Every headline as it happens.
This is our new NutraSwish, Numi NutraSwish. You can find more information at neumi.com/TTSS. neumi.com/TTSS, one of the products we offer because you all have different preferences and respond differently to different items. So this is our lavender. It's for ladies anywhere along your journey. No hormones in it, but if you're taking a hormonal supplement, you might want to check with your doctor. The blue is for anyone over the age of 18. It has glutathione, which is a antioxidant, helps with over 400 cellular functions, and it helps detox heavy metals, forever chemicals, graphene oxide, one of those terms we learned after 2020, and it helps detox glyphosate. The good glutathione helps detox glyphosate. Glyphosate is found in ag chemicals or lawn chemicals, and some are very concerned about possible links to cancers, HPVs, and diabetes. But the blue bottle, the glutathione, helps detox heavy metals, forever chemicals, graphene oxide, and glyphosate. Then there's the mango colored bottle you see on your screen. Numi Neuro helps with your mind, your memory, and your focus. Now, again, after 2020, we heard something about brain fog, a term we'd not heard before. Whether it's from a virus or a vaccine, many have found relief, a little help with Numi Neuro, the mango colored bottle. When used with the blue bottle, it is so positive that the American Brain Council wrote about it and it looked like an endorsement. Though we're told they don't write endorsements, it was simply a positive review of what they saw. You can find more information at neumi.com/TTSS. neumi.com/TTSS for the Tamara Scott Show. Why? Because we want you feeling your best. And when you use that TTSS link, you help us be our best. Testimony from Santorum, an article from Meckler from South Dakota, as they are under siege from this idea of a constitutional convention, totally unnecessary and absolutely risky to our sovereignty as a nation. And so, all right, Santorum mentioned, and let's bring Dennis back in. Dennis Behrend is our guest. American Daily Herald. I think I messed it up. AmericanDailyHerald.com, right? That's where people find you.
That's correct.
All right. So in the video at 104 and 9.9, and I'll put the video on the Tamara Scott Show Facebook page. Santorum, he only mentions 15 of the amendments. He doesn't talk about all 27, just the 15, and the fact that 17 were offered, 15 are active because one was repealed, to what you said about repealing the prohibition. But then he goes on, and let's start at 105.03. He's griping about having to have 75% to ratify something, Dennis. Now remember, in the 1787 convention, when they were supposed to simply revise the Articles of Confederation, it was unanimous. You had to have all of the states agree. They lowered that by 25% when they tossed out the Articles of Confederation, the first Constitution, and put in this Constitution, which Webster says was a miracle, and miracles don't happen in clusters. Take care of this one. It was godly inspired, and they prayed. I don't see that happening either. So this one, they lowered it to 75%. But now when we hear their attorneys, Robert Kelly, say we want to go in and undo the fifth article, which is how you call for a convention and how you ratify, I think they're now going to mess with the ratification process. Let's start at 105.03.
Of the vote. Imagine if you had to get 75% of the vote on any controversial issue here. I mean, it's impossible.
Okay, stop right there.
Particularly in the.
Just pause. Dennis, it's supposed to be that way. It's protection. We don't live in a straight up democracy, though people get that. This is protection for the minority.
Yeah. It's really an important point, and it's a point that's lost on the modern generation. But the founding fathers, when they created the Constitution, the very, very important idea behind the entire thing was to make it difficult for legislation to be turned into laws. They did not, and I'm speaking of the founders now, they did not appreciate the way in which monarchical regimes from which they emigrated away from Europe. They did not appreciate the way that was autocratic and that new laws could just be fastened upon people without representation, without debate, and that the implementation of laws was abrupt and despotic. They wanted to get rid of that type of situation, and they understood that in order to make the states here in the U.S. protected from that type of passage of despotic laws, the way to do that was to put up barriers to legislation, to make the process slow and deliberate by design. So we have repeatedly throughout our history heard, oh my gosh, the government is inefficient. We must fix the inefficiency of government when it comes to passage of legislation and adoption of laws. No, our founding fathers would say that is exactly what we want to avoid. We want to make this inefficient. We want there to be a lot of debate. We want to make it difficult, because if passage of laws is easy, then despotism is easy. To protect liberty, this needs to be deliberately constructed in such a way to obfuscate the process. That's how it must be. And we need also then to pit various competing parties against each other. We need to ultimately do this because if we go to a situation where, for instance, pure democracy, which James Madison, one of our great founding fathers and the author of the Constitution primarily, as he wrote and pointed out in the Federalist, when he was arguing why the Constitution was a good choice, he pointed out that the more democratic a government is, the more likely the rights of the minority will be suppressed and infringed upon by the government, by the majority. That's the whole point of democracy, so that the more democracy you have, the more the majority has control. And James Madison was rightly fearful of the way in which an agitated majority with easy legislative access and the ability to pass laws on a whim could despotically, put down a minority. And that was intended to be prevented by the design of our Constitution. So now when you hear modern attempts to overwrite the Constitution through a constitutional convention, a constitution of the states, you immediately have to think of James Madison. And you have to think, if they're proposing ways to, quote unquote, make the government more efficient, that's dangerous. That's something Madison would oppose. That's something the Founding Fathers explicitly rejected in the design and construction of our Constitution from the get-go. That makes me suspicious of things like constitutional conventions and the entire agenda of Convention of the States. And anytime I hear someone say, we need to make the government more efficient, that is an alarm bell right there. You should immediately hear alarm bells and take notice of that, because there's where danger lies.
Because efficient, we understand we can streamline. We saw Doge, we saw the fraud. We totally agree with that. That should have never been allowed to happen in the first place, had legislators at the state level been watching, and congressional members at the congressional level been held accountable. It would have never happened. We would have gotten it stopped. All right. So to your point, he brings up the 15th, the ERA. Let's go to 10528. 10528.
For it, but it failed because it didn't have broad enough support. I just share that with you, is that when people say, well, bad things can happen, all sorts of horrible things can be adopted, the reality is no, that's simply impossible. And the founders made it really hard for a reason. The Constitution is the broad base upon which our republic is founded upon, and it has to have a broad base of support. And so the idea that either the far left or the far right are going to use an amendment to the Constitution process to get radical ideas forward is absurd. By definition, it can't happen. And so I understand.
Let's stop right there. And I didn't get quite where I wanted. At 105.28, I thought he was saying it had overwhelming support, but it couldn't pass. And at 105.30, I thought he said, certainly among the elite. Okay, you want to try it now?
The Equal Rights Amendment. That was something that had overwhelming popularity, certainly among the elite class and those who were pushing for it, but it failed because...
Stop right there. So it goes into what we just heard. So the elite class, are they supposed to have more weight? Is that his deal? And then those pushing for it. Well, yes, Senator, usually those pushing for it are the ones who are supporting it. Okay. But it didn't have support. It was controversial. He talks about how controversial it was. It was extremely controversial. Phyllis Schlafly did not support it. Dr. Larry Arnn, in that early debate with Michael Farris on Convention of States, warned, if you bring up Convention of States, you will see a resurface of the ERA, which we have seen in the last 5-7 years. And he warned it won't just be two sexes. It will have to protect any sex that is declared. And we also hear with an ERA, you can't pass laws that are sex specific. So pro-life laws, abortion laws. I don't know then if you could even pass a law that says a male couldn't be in a female's shower. I don't know. So I think Larry Arnn showed wisdom in that, and he's proving Santorum wrong in this. Your thoughts?
Well, I see some inherent discord in thought process here that people need to pick up on.
Yeah.
He's arguing that, why didn't it pass when it was so popular? This was the most popular thing. It had broad support. Therefore, shouldn't it have passed? It didn't pass because it didn't have broad support. So what do we need? We need a convention of states to make it possible. So that right there just goes to tell you that this is about revolutionizing our government in order to make it possible to ease through legislative agendas that are despotic in nature, that otherwise would have no prayer under the existing system. So this is sort of almost an admission that, oh yeah, we're up to no good here.
So I've got to go to our third break, doggone it. We'll be right back with our final 8 minutes, and there's so much more we need to cram in here. So much more. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.
Hello, I'm Brandon House. Would you like to gain access to over 20 years of my radio shows, TV shows, my books? I've written 15 books, and most of those books are ebooks now, and we have conference DVDs, conferences where we filmed our conferences at the Ozarks, literally starting 20 years ago. It's all available in our archived vault. All you have to do is go to worldviewtube.com/vault, worldviewtube.com/vault, and for a reasonable monthly fee, you gain access to over 20 years of Christian worldview programming, news, information, books, documentaries, and a powerful search engine. And folks, it's a great way not only to educate yourself, equip yourself, but it's a big way that you can help fund our continuation as a broadcast network. Please check it out. worldviewtube.com/vault, worldviewtube.com/vault, and help us continue pushing out a Christian worldview.
All right, Dennis Behrman is my guest. We are debunking words said in South Dakota by Rick Santorum and Mark Meckler. And maybe it's just a difference of opinions, right? Maybe we just interpret the Constitution differently, which is my point. We're going to get together and totally revamp, revise, or replace the Constitution, and everybody's going to come out and sing Kumbaya by the campfire and agree on what it says. Never happen. We're still arguing at the Supreme Court level about what this one says, and it's 250 some years old, right? Never going to happen. All right, so you heard Santorum in his, he sounds so angry. That nothing dangerous will ever happen. And he's pretty much said nothing of any consequence will happen. I don't know how you get paid, what is it, over $333,000 a year to get told why the thing you're promoting will never happen, won't accomplish much, not much will happen. All right. So on the ratification there, we've got a hint that they probably want to change the ratification. I just sent this off to a friend. I just said, this is somebody in the pro-life. How many pro-life states saw bad referendums passed after Dobbs v. Jackson due to fear tactics of the left and pro-death big money ads and propaganda? And so because they're saying, referendums will save us, the ratification will save us, the states will have to pass it. All right, how states pass it may be up to that state, right? I don't know. So then he says 11 states. And that includes pro-abortion states like Vermont, California, Colorado, New York, also Maryland. The more pro-life states that were adversely affected were Michigan, Ohio, and Missouri. And then I asked, what about Kansas? And he said Kansas and Kentucky and Montana were ballot measure fights where measures that are intended to limit the right to an abortion did not pass. And so they were considered victories by the other side. So Kentucky still has illegal, abortion is illegal, but the other side considers it a victory. I'm just telling you, with the right media, Barton warns about democracies and fervor turning into mobocracies in the moment. You talked about government being efficient. Government's not supposed to be reactive. It's supposed to be proactive. And if we make it so it's easy to change things, I can't imagine how erratic our governing document will be. Dennis, am I on the right track here?
You're 100% on the right track. You are giving voice to the concerns that James Madison had all the way back in the constitutional era. This is exactly what he was worried about. And there's the philosophical side of it, but there's also where the rubber meets the road in daily life. Let's say you run a business, but every 6 months the laws that govern your business are changing based on some particular democratic whim from a majority that's been whipped into a frenzy by some sort of propaganda campaign. How are you supposed to run your business? Let's just say you're a homeowner. How are you supposed to even know what's going to happen next with your property? One minute you think you own your property, the next minute maybe some majority says, nope, we can't be having that because your property is located on some theoretically ancestral homeland for some other indigenous group, and suddenly you're evicted from your property. And let me tell you, that can happen. That could be a possibility. I was just at a meeting here like a week ago that was not even related to this subject. And what was said at this meeting was, well, let's recognize before we start the meeting that this meeting is taking place on the ancestral homelands of a particular Native American tribe, and we don't have a legitimate, the implication was we don't have a legitimate claim to even be standing on this land right now. So you can start seeing how those types of things and many others can be used to whip up propaganda against or for particular measures and radically lead to outcomes that are unexpected and in the moment if you have a democracy where the majority can easily legislate. Again, the founding fathers saw this as a significant problem because they saw in the old monarchies in Europe that the monarch could just say, well, whatever, we're going to go ahead and tax your, tea at a certain level, and you're just going to do it. We're saying it, and that's going to be up to you to pay it, and you have no say in the matter. They didn't like that. That was the essence of despotism to them. And so they wrote the Constitution specifically to make sure, again, and you pointed it out, I've pointed it out, they wanted to make sure that that kind of rapid legislative despotism couldn't happen here in the US very easily at all. So when we want to revamp through a convention of the states, this mechanism that prevents despotic passage of legislation on a democratic whim, and we want to rewrite that, we're talking really serious danger. And I thought it was pretty interesting that in his remarks, Rex Santorum, he said as much that there was danger in this, but states should just do it anyway. Don't worry about the danger. We should just do it anyway. That's an admission in his own comments that this is a dangerous situation. This is a dangerous proposal that he's pushing. He's got something else going on. He knows it's dangerous. He admitted it. So we should look out for what he's doing.
They've gone from calling us fearmongers to downplaying the danger. It's interesting. You're absolutely correct, because they called us all kinds of names because we opposed it. We were fearmongers. And so now they're just downplaying the danger, and I think that's a very risky thing to downplay. In the article, Meckler says something about we'll have our best and brightest. Again, we don't know how anybody's going to be chosen or selected. And I just named several states where pro-abortion bans were passed. Even in Republican states, we have less than strong conservative Republicans. Santorum has alluded that it would always be Republican conservatives. And now Meckler's trying to say, oh, no, it's not necessarily partisan. Although they've come out and said those of us who oppose it are on the side of Hillary and Soros. For years, they've been partisan on this. But the best and the brightest, okay, I don't know, Dennis, who do you think Minnesota will send? I mean, just look.
It's going to be someone who has close ties to Tim Walz and the apparatus there for sure. There's no question about that.
The people are in the streets angry because criminals are being arrested. Criminals who were rapists, who harmed children, the same people who weren't in the streets and were silent when 300,000 children were missing, and many of them were being raped and trafficked. So that tells you where the mentality of the people are today when Robert Brown says more close to Marx than they are Madison. I don't think it's final thoughts for our viewers, Dennis.
Well, I want to end with the idea of who's going to be chosen for these conventions, and probably it would be from amongst the so-called elite. And I think we need to be very careful about who might be among the so-called elite and whether they should be even classified as elite. That sort of runs counter to American tradition that we have a class above everyone else. But in particular, in this day and age, you look at the so-called elite in light of what we now know about the Epstein affair. And, those people are not unimpeachable in their morals and in their behavior. Far from it, quite the opposite, in fact. And so what I would say is to underscore who's selected for, being on these, in these convention of states, should they ever come to pass situations. No one is. We do not have a population that is comprised of the James Madisons of the world from the past. They no longer exist. We don't train them anymore. We don't give them the background, the knowledge. We don't do that. We don't produce James Madison type people today. Very, very, very rarely are you going to find one. Clarence Thomas comes to mind, but how many Clarence Thomases do you encounter in your daily lives? Do you see them on TV? Do you find them anywhere? Ron Paul. Do you find very many Ron Pauls? These people are very scarce, where once in the founding generation, you could count Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, George Washington, the list goes on and on and on. We don't have such a list because we don't train people. That level of training, that knowledge is not transferred to people these days. We're going to end up with something radically different and radically dangerous, and it's unnecessary. To stay away from danger is to stay safe from danger. Let's just stay away from this danger. That's my opinion.
Especially when we have another way. It's like going out of a burning building and choosing the hallway with fire and choosing the hallway with none. It's just, and an open door at the end. I just can't think of the way they process this other than to sell it for another reason because they have another agenda. We have no idea if they'll be elected, selected, appointed, anointed. We have no control over them once they get there. So, all right, Dennis Behrend, thank you so much for joining me today. There's just so much more to peel apart on this because the arguments just don't stand. To everybody out there, call your legislator. I don't care what state you're in, and tell them do not ever support an Article 5 convention. We have the process, the congressional process, to change our Constitution should we desire to do so. To everybody out there, live boldly, love better, laugh bigger, be encouraged, and never be complacent.